Good afternoon, everyone, to Safari Live. Here we have Mr. Ellie in a thicket. It looks like he's in a thicket right over here. There we go. That's Mr. Ellie in our pot plant that we grew just about a week and a half ago. So yeah, that's where it is. And now Ellie's now got a new place, a new home to forage in. He's actually got a tusk. He's only got half a tusk, actually. But let me just welcome everyone to the show while we're here. This is a live safari. My name is while traversing. Let's see if we can find Nkuhuma. That's a big plan for today. I would love to see that beautiful female leopard again. Gerard would like to know if we are going to be seeing a leopard this drive. You know, I can only do my best, you know, and I think that's what matters. Myself and Dave on the back here. Dave's got incredible eyes. The other day, Dave spotted 2 cheetah in the distance at Cheetah Plain. So that was exciting. It's quite a rare sighting for us to get. So we've got the eyes of David behind us, and I'll have a look for tracks that might lead us to those beautiful sightings of the leopards and the cheetahs. So all I can say is we shall try our best to find you the spotted cats this afternoon. We have got James Henry is out in the field, who shall be looking as hard as he can for those leopards on the buffelshoek. There were lionesses there this morning. We had quite an interaction with them earlier. It was quite cool to find them. We're sitting with a crested barbet, one of the most beautiful birds in the bush that has a monotonous call. And then all of a sudden we heard that there were 2 lionesses in buffelshoek, and we went down and had a look at tracks, and we found them, or Fanoti, the tracker from Nkuhuma, found them on the other side, on the eastern edge of Buffelshoek Dam, and we got to spend a little bit of time with those 2 females, the one who looks like she might be pregnant, but she could also be really full, so we can't be too sure of it, and she was very relaxed with us being there this afternoon, or this morning. She didn't get angry with us being there, and as soon as she displayed any kind of feelings or communicated any kind of aggressive behavior towards us, then we would have backed off. So the comfortability of the morning was perfect with those 2 lionesses. And then you also saw 2 lionesses with James, and they had killed a young kudu bull, which is very exciting. So we've had already a very packed day. We had wild dogs with Jamie last night. Who knows what this afternoon shall bring. I've already seen an elephant in a big... Ooh, is that a tortoise? It's not a tortoise, it's a big rock in the road. Sorry everyone, it's just a rock. I thought it was a tortoise. These things will happen. While we head off to the plains of Cheetah, let's go and see what Mr. James Henry is up to this afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Wendy, recalcitrant old bag that she is. We are driving up towards the Sydney's Dam to see what has come down to drink on this balmy, wonderful afternoon, 26 degrees Fahrenheit, which sits at roughly, I think, 78 degrees no, sorry, I'm talking nonsense. It's well hotter than 26 degrees Fahrenheit. It's 26 Celsius roughly, and about 78 degrees Fahrenheit, if I'm not mistaken. Now, on camera today, for the first time in 2 weeks, is Jean-Andre Typhoid Gerden. He's recently returned from Africa, Bern, which of course is a place where very grubby people go to play around in the deserts. Not so, Jean-Andre?
Right.
Right. Did you have a nice time? Good. We shall hear about it as we progress. Obviously, we don't want to get too close to Jean-Andre, everybody, so I will probably be sitting like this for the majority of the drive. My idea today is to go towards Sydney's Dam, like I say, see if we can't pick up on some elephants maybe having a drink there, and then we'll head across towards Buffelshoek Dam, which of course is where those lions were this morning. Two groups of Nkuhumas, one just off, oh sorry, let's just get past these fellows here. Aye! Two groups, one that had eaten a kudu last night, and they were sort of to the south of Buffelshoek Dam, and then two, perhaps one who's recently given birth to young cubs at Buffelshoek Dam itself, and those are the ones that Sam was following through an extremely difficult area this morning, and they managed to avoid him and Taxon and Aubrey, so they must be wanting their privacy, which is good news when we think about the prospect of little lion cubs coming up. So that's the plan for the afternoon. You are most welcome. It's lovely to have you along for the ride for the next 3 hours. And we are as live as Sam is, believe it or not, probably more so because he's from Cape Town. And you can talk to us at any stage, hashtag Safari Live, or questions at wildearth.tv. We'd love to talk to you. I think the email's working. Kirsten, is that correct? Kirsten says some of the email is working. I don't really know how that works, but some of the email is working. So you can try and talk to us on email. Twitter's definitely working, and I think the YouTube chat stream is probably also working. So please use the email questions at wildearth.tv. I don't think the others are working. I don't know what the others are. I didn't know there were any. Anyway, let's see what happens. We did have some troubles this morning, so sorry about that. And a couple of signal issues as well, which we've hopefully sorted out during the course of what has been a very beautiful autumn day here. You can see the sky is a deep, wonderful blue. And thank you for all of you for welcoming Jean-Andre back from his prolonged sojourn down to the southern reaches of the country. Jean-Andre, highlights of your leave in one sentence.
Not being belittled by you.
That's very good. Okay, try another one.
The mountain.
See, nothing you can do about somebody from the Cape. The mountain, he says. It is a very beautiful mountain if you ever see it. I cast aspersions on it only when I'm actually around Cape Townians. Here we are into the clearings. Now remember, we've just hit May. We're going into the dark phase of the moon. I can't hear. Oh, there we go, that's better sound from Kirsten now. A dark phase of the moon in May, and that of course is the time when the impalas are going to be mating, so let's watch out for them. They're going to be running around shouting at each other with great enthusiasm at the moment. Andrea, you're interested in which my favorite part of the reserve is. And sometimes those sort of questions are difficult to answer. What's your favorite animal? What's your favorite flower, etc.? But that actually, for me, is quite easy to answer. I know exactly where it is. It's at the junction of Zoe's Road and Philemon's Cut Line, because there's an incredible view down over the foothills of the Drakensberg, a whole line of granite rocky outcrops that extends to the mountains, and you can see all the way down that line, and especially during the beginning of the day or the end of the day, you can see the mountains from there, and they always give me tremendous comfort. So those are my favorite places on the reserve. Thank you for that, Andrea. Now, just around here is where we first saw that leopard Tsakani, who you saw yesterday with Jamie. And if you we were walking here one day when we were doing our tracking evaluation. And if you look in front of us there, you can see a kind of white log. And just on that white log there, we heard squirrels shouting, and then we heard Franklin's alarm calling, and we knew something was up. And this leopard shot across the road and up towards the north, towards Sydney's dam. And that was the first sight that we had of Tsakani. She was on foot, and it's always such a joy to see a leopard on foot, even though most of the sightings that you have of them on foot last less than 3 or 4 seconds. Come on, Wendy, let's go. There we go. So we'll keep an eye out for her tracks. Jamie had her around here 2 days ago, or yesterday. So with any luck, she'll be around for a bit longer, but I think she spends the majority of her time, of course, up in Biffel's which is north of us. While we make our way to the water, let's go across to Sam. He's got some of the last of the summer butterflies.
Look at these butterflies that are all around us. There was an African migrant there. Looks like a moth, that one there. That's the African migrant. Beautiful looking butterfly. There's a number of them around us, and this camera's incredible because you can really pick up the detail on these little flowers and the butterflies that are on them. Have a look at that. Those dots and the shapes. I'm not sure which butterfly this one is. Brent Leo Smith is a king at butterflies. He really knows them very well. I just know my monarch and my African migrant, which is at the bottom of the screen there. They're all around us here. Inside the drainage line. We're in the Mawati drainage line. We've just come down to have a look and see what is going on here. And we've just found so many butterflies. It's incredible. It's so beautiful. And they're all so different. Look at the shapes and designs. Great camera work there, Dave. Awesome. And even these flowers, just opening themselves to attract all the different pollinators. Incredible. So that is a nice little picture that we just got of some butterflies while we head off onto our way to the plains of Cheetah, the Cheetah Plains. James is with the kudu. Let's go and see the kudu.
This might be the most impressive kudu bull that I've ever seen here at Djuma. He's got an incredibly widespread set of horns, but to me that's not what the most impressive thing about him is. He's got a very grey to black head, which I don't think I've seen before, and I think is probably an indicator of his age. Some of it does appear to be some dust there, but also, just look, you can probably see there, the back of his neck. He's incredibly wide. So the muscle there is quite phenomenal, and I'm not surprised given the set of horns he has to carry around with him all day. They will have finished their rutting and mating season by now. Their gestation is obviously proportionately longer than the impalas, which means that their rutting and mating season will be that much earlier than the impalas, because they too will want to give birth during the height of the next rains. But he is an impressive bull, he really is. And I know that there was a character around here that people called Zeus. I'm not sure if this is maybe him, but I think far more than his widespread horns would be the distinctive grey to charcoal of his neck and head, which he's now got stuck into a delicious bush, of course, so it's quite difficult to tell. He's a fantastic kudu bull, this, he really is. They probably weigh, he's probably not shy, not too far shy of just over 600 pounds. So he's a big fella. And those horns, interestingly, probably almost useless for defending themselves against predators, sorry. They don't normally have to defend themselves against the trees that they eat, but they do have to defend themselves against lions, and I think running away is probably a far more effective means, or even kicking, than those horns, which are decorative, A, and B, used to fight each other. And every year, just after the rut, pictures appear on social media and various other fora where two kudu have become totally and inextricably interlocked with their horns, and they've died either of starvation or exhaustion trying to extract themselves from each other. And I saw a picture yesterday of two kudu bulls in the Kruger somewhere that had got locked while they were fighting. And because obviously an animal, you know what an animal does when it panics, it just starts to pull away from whatever is constricting it. And that's why a snare, for example, if you're hunting or poaching, is particularly effective, because an animal will never think to kind of move towards the threat and in so doing lessen the kind of bond, which would be the case with a snare. And it's the same thing with two kudu that get locked. If they would just move towards each other slightly and then twist a little, they could move apart very easily. But because they get locked and just then start pulling frantically against each other, it becomes almost impossible for them to extricate themselves from the dire situation in which they find themselves, and they end up dying like that. There's probably some sort of a metaphor in there for human beings, but I'm probably not intelligent enough to think about what it is. Jeandre, maybe you can think about it. Moving towards each other in conflict, and in so doing, reducing any troubles. Probably time for a picular. He is such a magnificent bull. Bethany, a nice one from you about property laws, and would we, or is this kudu considered property? Is this kudu considered property of the reserve? Peculiar. Bethany, I don't know exactly what the law is, but certainly the reserve could take the decision. You say if the drought became so bad, could they take the decision to start selling animals? Absolutely they could. They did. During the summertime, when the rains didn't come and the water holes were drying out, they did sell a whole lot of hippopotamus. So that's absolutely a decision they can make. But it's through it's the association that is the Sabi Sands. So all the private landowners will get together, they'll have a board meeting, they'll take a decision, and then that's what they'll do. Now, I don't know how property works or how the law works in this country for this specific piece of land, because while it belongs to the association of the Sabi Sands, it is privately owned on its own. And whether this kudu bull, because it stands on Djuma, belongs to the landowner of Djuma, I don't know. I'm not sure how it works out here. But certainly the association that is the Sabi Sands can take a decision to sell animals on. Very nice question. Thank you, Bethany. All righty, let's move on. Jeandre has clearly had enough of Zeus. Much too interested in watching me. You've never seen me take a picular before, have you? No, it must have been a real privilege for you there, Jeandre. On we go. I think, like I've said, we are into a very, very dry season. Bevan, yes, surprisingly your question is in fact true. You say, is the kudu, you've read that the kudu is the loudest antelope and it makes an incredibly loud barking sound. It does. It's a low frequency barking sound, and it's low frequency because they live in thick bush, and lower frequency sounds travel better through thick bush than do high frequency sounds. And it sounds like a really loud sort of dog bark. But they only do it when they're really upset, when they're really alarmed. So if a pride of lions was to come wandering through here, or a big male leopard, then they would make that loud barking sound. And certainly, I mean, if you had never heard it before, you wouldn't identify it as a kudu. In the same way, I was watching a documentary last night that a sika deer in India makes this kind of bird-like wailing when it's alarm calling, and you never associate that kind of a sound with something like a deer. And I think the same goes for impala when they're making their rutting. They make that loud roaring noise. It's just totally incongruous with the elegant antelope. Now, if you do lose signal here, I apologize. We're going to have a quick look at the dam, and then we'll move off to a more stable area to the east. Sorry. We might just quickly look through here and see if there's anything up the water. No, let's go and have a look at the actual water's edge. Now, this waterhole that we're going towards will, if we don't have any more rain, and I don't think we're going to this year, or this season, this will become one of the last remaining standing water holes in this whole area. I don't see anything there at the moment. No, nothing. Plenty of elephant tracks around. And of course, we did have the dogs coming up and down here recently, and they were on Buffels Hook yesterday. At least this last night sometime. So we were chatting about property laws and who owns what and who has what. So just to reiterate, for those of you who might be new viewers, we're on our northern boundary now. To the right-hand side of your screen is Nkuhuma, that we're allowed to traverse, obviously, in its entirety, 1,200 hectares, or about 2,500 acres. Then off to the right-hand side, I'm talking nonsense, it's about 3,000, 3,000 acres. Then to the left of us is Buffels Hook, and Buffels Hook is private land that we're not allowed to traverse, so we can't go there. But the animals, of course, can come and go as they please. You can see that there are no physical impediments to stopping the animals coming and going. So sometimes that Zeus might be the owners of Nkuhumas, and sometimes he might be the owners of Buffels Hook. Who knows? Then, of course, we go to the east, where Cheetah Plains is, 500 hectares of that, or 1,200 acres, and that's where Sam's going now. And then to the west, it's the same again in Arathusa. Let us get ourselves out of the way for the authorities. Bow and scrape as Edwin drives past. That's not Edwin. That's Edwin's wife, who looks nothing like Edwin at all. She's much prettier than Edwin. And Evan, you then are asking the very obvious question as to whether this is an open or closed reserve. Well, Evan, it is part of... Ooh, that's very loud. It's part of the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park. That is 8 million acres or 3.5 million hectares of completely open area. So on the far eastern boundary inside Mozambique, there is a fence that goes around north into Zimbabwe and then down west, down the western fringes of the Kruger National Park and the Sabi Sands. Within that 8 million acres, there are no fences. So it's a completely open system within there. So that's why most of the time we don't know what we're going to see next. Yes, the leopards and the lions are territorial, but the wild dogs and the elephants and the herds of buffalo and that sort of thing, well, we don't know where they're going to be, and that's one of the great joys of driving around in an area like this. Let me just contact Jamie. Go ahead. You can hear what Jamie has to say.
There's fresh middle-lane wet tracks on Zoe's Road. See them on main access, but they're close to the main access junction heading towards Gallagher Pan.
Jamie, we had male leopard tracks coming Zoe's Road, Gallagher shortcut, and then seemingly going across Buffels Hook cut line. Are they on top of vehicle tracks there? Just finding out how old these tracks are.
Okay, I can see shoes tracking them. Alright, they might have been from this morning.
Okay, copy, thanks. I mean, he may have come back, so keep us posted, please.
Will do.
Right here. Now, completely lost my train of thought now, so I'm probably going to waffle incoherently about something nonsensical. Oh yes, open and closed reserves. So this is one of the great open systems of Africa. I think possibly the greatest would be the Serengeti Mara ecosystem. Now that's different from this in that there is no fence around any of it. So while there is a kind of geographical GPS boundary around that reserve, there's no fence around it, which means that there is this kind of buffer area on either side where people live in conjunction with wildlife. And I always think that that's rather a marvelous way of doing things. And I think it's a really lovely way that they've managed to make it happen. And yes, there is conflict. Of course there's conflict having the Maasai walking their cattle into the Serengeti with the wildebeest migrating by. But that's how it's been for thousands of years. And so if you can make that work, that to me is by far the most sustainable way to do conservation, especially in areas where there are thousands or millions even of poor people living on the borders of conservation areas. Now, I've just spotted some grey hornbills which are flying away with their mournful calls. There are two more, Jean-Marie. They don't want to be filmed. Someone who does want to be filmed, of course, all the way to the far east of where we can traverse, Samuel Chevalier on Cheetah Plains.
So we are at the plains, myself and Dave and Mr. Elephant, and we are heading towards the open areas. There's been some elephant tracks, giraffe tracks, birds flying through the trees, all sorts is happening here at Cheetah Plains already. So every single time I turn around I've got the sun in my eyes. So I can't really look at that camera right now. Have a look at this tree that is in the termite mound. Very cool, and that is most likely an ivory tree, a brown ivory. So they often grow on top of termite mounds. And the reason why they grow there is because the termites, of course, are collecting all sorts of seeds that they bring from far away, and they bring them towards these termite mounds. And the Nkuhumas are named after the brown ivory tree. That's a nice little fact. Nkuhumas, who we saw this morning, which was very cool to see them. Jeez, that was just saw a huge bug flying there. Did you see that, Dave? That big. I don't know what that was. Must have been maybe a rhino beetle or something. Rhino beetle flying around us. Very cool. So, it's quite cheetah plains. It starts off very thick, and so we like to go quite slow through here. There's the best chance of possibly seeing elephant. We're going to go slowly. Although elephants are large, in the thicket here. So if we have a look closely, we might just find Nelly. At the same time, this is also the area where a lot of leopards would be. We've seen quite a few tracks of leopards here. I mean, this is only, I think, the 5th time that I've been to Cheetah Plains. But we've seen tracks of leopards, so there most definitely is leopard around the area. The cheetah is what we're looking for today. I'd love to see another cheetah, but an ostrich or a jackal would go down quite well, I'm sure, with all of you. I know we were looking through Arethusa for a jackal. As you know, all three of those animals, the jackal, the ostrich and the cheetah, are never the easiest things to find. You often have to track them to find them. So we will pay very close attention to both the ground, the air, and through the bushes to see if we can find anything lurking amongst the trees. is three dams. Ooh, what do we have here? It's like we've got some hippo out of water tracks in front to watch. Kathy from Washington, I think your question was with the butterflies, what eats the butterflies? I think that was the question, and what do they eat when the butterflies are gone? I think that's right. Yes, got that right. Great. So the butterflies, from what I understand, is most insects from. Look how beautiful those flowers are. If anyone can tell me what these flowers are, they look very, very pretty. Would you be able to get those there? How beautiful those flowers are. Never seen those before. Anyone knows what those are? Please help us out. Hashtag Safari Live. We'd love to know what those flowers are. They just caught my attention while I was driving. So there's quite a few, of course, species, like from lizards to geckos to all sorts of animals that will eat the insects. Frogs, flatneck chameleons, birds that will eat butterflies. You often see the lilac-breasted roller eating a butterfly. But when the butterflies are gone, there's loads of other things to eat, such as the insects, termites. Termites is a common food source out here. A lot of animals eat termites. Everything from very, very small animals to the bigger animals such as aardvark. And even there's an animal out here called an aardwolf. Can you believe it? I promise you there's an animal called an aardwolf. I didn't even know that until I was tracking around the Cederberg Mountains and came across a wolf-looking animal that was eating termites. And I was so shocked. It was such a beautiful animal, but it looked like it would eat meat, but it just eats termites. So it's a very, very interesting animal to see. Hopefully one day on our live safaris we may come across that magical animal, and it's a nocturnal animal, so it's quite difficult to find. But at night time we shall open our eyes and see if we can look through the thickets and the drainage lines to see if we can find a stripy coloration. If I can find you a lilac-breasted roller, I'll also do that. It's quite a common bird out here in the bush, but you often see them eating butterflies, so that would be quite nice to link those butterflies we saw earlier to some lilac-breasted rollers eating them. You'll have a better understanding of how food chains work in the bush, so how energy is cycled through the webs, the food webs. The butterflies eat the birds, the birds eat the butterflies, and the bigger birds eat the birds. So there's all sorts of links in the chain. And what we're looking for now is a side-striped jackal. Frank says it could very well be an African violet that we saw a little bit earlier. I hope someone screenshots it. I should have actually asked someone to screenshot those flowers, so then I could have put it and then put a label underneath it saying African violet, it was really, really, really beautiful flower. Thank you, Frank, for helping us out with that. Laura just sent us an email saying that she's also agreeing that it's an African violet. Fantastic. Learned something new this afternoon. That's what it's all about. Even if we're not seeing the predators, there's still the smaller things that we can learn a little bit more about. Yours. We're starting to get into the open areas now. Tamara just asked, how can we tell the difference between cheetah and leopard tracks? You know what, Tamara, I'm going to show you in the book just because it's easier to explain. The main thing is, the main difference between the two is that the cheetah track has actually got it's got claws basically. So here we go. Here's all our tracks, our predator tracks. So there is the leopard. So lion, leopard, cheetah. Okay. Of course, the cheetah is much smaller than the leopard, but you'll notice the pad is narrow and it's got claw marks. So when you see those claw marks, very well it's going to be a cheetah. I just want to show you very quickly where is the African wild dog. So there's the African wild dog. So sometimes we can make mistakes out there where we're not getting things right. But as soon as you get the book out and you start comparing things, you can start to get to know things a little bit better. With the spotted hyena has that like almost side lobe over there. That's how you spot the hyena. And so there's different ways in which you can connect and differentiate between the different tracks. So that's what we're going to be looking for, the cheetah track this afternoon. And we are literally very close to that big open area. We're going to get there in a couple seconds, so just stick with us. Open your eyes out, look through those planes. If you can see through your screens, you might just see something running after an impala. Could very well be a cheetah. While myself and Dave open our eyes up, let's quickly go to James with an elephant.
Well, he opens his what up. Don't know what that was. Here is a small herd of elephants that we shouldn't really be looking at, should we, Jean-Andre? They're north of the road, everyone, inside Biffle's Hook, where there are a whole lot of private landowners that they don't know if we're looking at their elephants or not. They could come across. We're quite close to Biffle's Hook Dam. They might wander across for a drink just now. I am, of course, being completely facetious. There's no problem with us looking at elephants on Biffle's Hook, as long as we don't drive in there. Now, that elephant is eating something called Ziziphus mucronata, and we gave the whole story again this morning about that remarkable tree and its spiritual significance to the local people from here all the way up into Ethiopia and various other parts of Africa. And it is used to bring the spirit of the dead person. If they die away from home, it is used to take the spirit of the dead person back to where they were born, and in so doing, allow them to rest at peace. It is also rumored, as I said this morning, to have been the tree from which the crown of thorns that Christ wore was made. Whether that is true or not is anyone's guess. Certainly very nasty thorns. What a very clever question from Debbie in Vancouver about the defenses that trees have against being eaten. Well, Debbie, in broad strokes, there are two kinds of defense. One is a physical defense or mechanical defense, which that Ziziphus has, clearly completely ineffective when being eaten by an elephant. And the other is chemical defense. And I think, Debbie, that the chemical defenses are probably more effective in most of the trees here. And I think possibly the tree with the most effective chemical defense is the guarri. Now, the magic guarri, or Euclea divinorum, is so seldom eaten by anything. I think I've seen kudu maybe sup on it once at the very end of the dry season. It's an evergreen tree that nothing tends to eat, and it's so inedible that many of the cats mark their territory on the bush because they know that nothing is going to come past and eat where they have marked their territory. So, Debbie, I would say that the common, and not unsurprisingly common, because it's obviously difficult for animals to eat, the common Euclea divinorum or magic guarri is probably the tree that I would say has the most effective defense of any other here. And if you don't know what it is, I will try and find one. You normally, in the drainage line areas, except the drainage line area that we're in now, free of any Euclea divinorum. We will find one, Divi. I'm sure you know it. You've been watching for a while, but I will find you a tree. So they've gone off into Biffle's Hook. We too shall go off to the dam. Hello, Charlie, all the way from Pennsylvania. Lovely to hear from you. You say you've been watching since 2014, and yet this is the first time that you've asked us a question. Charlie, thank you for watching for so long, and thank you very much for sending through your first question. It's a very good one. You say, do the local farmers of the area use buffalo or collect buffalo and elephant dung to put on their fields for fertilizer? The answer is no, Charlie, because there are no buffalo and elephant outside of the fences. So, we were just chatting earlier about the open systems that are the, say, Masai Mara, Serengeti ecosystem, where I suppose the Masai were they great planters of crops, which they aren't, but if they were, they could go in and collect buffalo and elephant dung and use that. But out here, of course, there is a fence, and beyond that fence, buffalo and elephant do not occur. And so the local people can't use buffalo and elephant dung. We certainly use it sometimes inside the camps where there are herb gardens and that sort of thing. Then we would use buffalo and elephant dung for fertilizer. And likewise, what you'll find is outside, the evolutionary equivalent of buffalo, of course, is cattle. And cattle dung is absolutely used as fertilizer. But all the way around here, and the reason we'd rather people didn't come in and collect buffalo and elephant dung is that the buffalo and elephant dung is such a crucial natural fertilizer to all the grasslands and forage that occur in this area. And so without that buffalo and elephant dung, there would certainly be a great removal of a crucial part of the nutrient cycle in this area. Here we are on the far northeastern corner. We're on the Cheetah Cut Line, and we're heading down towards the Beefles Hook Dam. Where hopefully there will be some kind of an interesting animal or bird to show you. Hopefully those lions lying gently next to the water, possibly with a buffalo to snack upon. Although, as I said, although we've had many buffalo there over the last little while, those 3 or 4 lionesses, even 5 of them, are going to struggle to take down a large buffalo bull without a male. And in case you haven't been watching for a while, it would seem that one of the Nkuhuma pride has gone off with one of the Birmingham boys, one of the remaining 4, and she seems to be mating with them, or with him. And so maybe she too will have cubs. We saw, there was a very good suggestion today. I said we were watching the young spotty-nosed lioness today eating on a kudu, or the remains of a kudu, the sort of insides. It was like a sort of fairly a grim version of a morning haggis. And I said, well, it looks like she's full, she's been eating a lot. And then somebody pointed out very cleverly that she didn't seem to be panting, yet she seemed to be extremely full. And I said I didn't know if she was pregnant, and it was suggested that maybe it was a way of telling whether she was pregnant or not was whether she was panting, even though, and she wasn't. And she was so full, so maybe that big fat belly that she had is an indication that there are little cubs about to be born to her. I thought that was a really good thought. From one of our viewers, very astute are our viewers. Right, Samuel has reached the great plains of Cheetah. Let us go across and find out what there is in those vast open clearings.
So we have just come into the open areas of Cheetah Plains, and we have some buffalo. Have a look to the big, well, not such a huge one. You've got a very old one over here. Have a look at this buffalo that is right here, just in front of us. I'm just going to get into a position where we can sit and have a good look at him. He is a
that's nice.
big boy. There we go. You can see his skin is starting to deteriorate on top of his body and around it. That is an indication that he is a very old boy. And that you'll often find them down by the mud wallows, as you can see here, because they need to cover themselves up from the sun, otherwise they get quite burnt, much like the hippos. So you see old buffalo bulls will become quite similar to that of hippos in their older days, and you can see all those oxpeckers on top of his body. So there's quite a bit of mud all the way around his body. Look at all that, the hair loss there. You can see how he can quite easily get burnt. So he'll be sitting in these mud wallows as much as he can. And let's have a look at his face. You can see the age in this old... Oh, and this oxpecker is really biting into him there. Oh, look at that oxpecker is getting right in that eye. Here we go, have a look. So look at the way in which the oxpecker cleans this buffalo. It's incredible, it's its own little cleanse. I would find that quite, in the ear, up the nose. They must be so used to a bird just going up all the different crevices, whether it be their eyes or their noses. So it's right up his ear there as he chews his cud. You can see his boss is also starting to deteriorate slightly. Big old boy. This is the one buffalo that you have to be quite wary of. We just had a question through around why is it such that the big five are the way that they are. Why is it called the big five? And it's from Ben, and Ben it's the big five comes from the most dangerous on foot. So this is probably the most dangerous on foot, is the old buffalo bull who's too old to be able to run away from a predator. That his best form of defense is to attack or fight. So you've got to be very careful. That's why it's called the big five, dangerous on foot. So we've got a number of the big five. We have the buffalo, we have the elephant, we have the lion, we have the leopard, and we have the final one. Hold on, I'm just looking here. And the final one, which is the rhino. Sorry, I was just looking at these females. There's quite a few of them here. So, Ben, when you're on foot, you must be careful of those 5 animals because they are dangerous on foot, and that's where the big 5 comes from. But it's very cool to see this. It's not such a large herd. Normally we call a group of buffaloes the large herd. It's more like a nice big family group of buffaloes. You see some young calves as well as females. I'm quite interested. Is this big buffalo that is by the watering hole here, is it part of the large herd? Is he following them, or is he just sitting in this watering hole? So he does look quite isolated from the group there. Unless he's the only one that wanted to go and wallow. Let's see what he does now. He's going down. Yo, that's quite a hill. And what's quite special about this sighting is that we are in the open areas. So I haven't seen buffaloes out in the open areas for a while, and Cheetah Plains provides that. And we know with these areas, if we were to see some predators, could make for a very interesting scene. If we were to see some lions a little bit later. So speaking of the wonderful lion that is also part of the big 5, let's go to James and find out what he's looking at.
Well, everybody, you won't believe it, but we've managed to track and find you a male lion and a female lion of whom we were talking. One Miss Nkuhuma and one Mr. Birmingham. They are lying post-passion, I'm guessing, here in the middle of what is a very sort of warm afternoon. I don't think they're going to do a huge amount while we're here, but we'll sit here for a little while. Now, I'd love to tell you that we did track them, which we did actually, but they were walking directly along the road, so it wasn't exactly a difficult tracking exercise. And I think what they did was come out of Torchwood sometime this morning onto Nkuhuma, which is where they are now, and here they are. It's really nice to see them. Fast asleep. Fast asleep. So I'm not sure how long they've been here. The tracks look like they've probably been here for, I don't know, I think they probably came down here sometime during the course of the mid-morning, actually, which is unusual. Because there were people driving all over here during the course of the morning, and they were nowhere to be seen. Anyway, let's just try and identify which female this is. Well, while we look at the male, of course. Sorry, Jean-Andre. We'll look at the female. Her eyes are not open, so difficult to say. Let's look at her nose. Her nose looks pretty pink. So it might be amber eyes. There is a kind of sheen of black over the pink. I didn't see amber eyes this morning, I don't think. So this could well be old amber eyes. And we will go around to Buffelshoek Dam just now and have a look and see if we can't find the other two that were going towards there. But I think these chaps have probably been here for a substantial portion of the day, probably from about 9 o'clock. They aren't dead, I promise, they are alive. This is what lions do, everyone. Nothing. I'm quickly going to call it in on the radio, just in case anyone else wants to come and see them. The station is located, 1 male lion, 1 female lion on Gwari Pan Road. Animals are about 150 meters from the junction with Hippo Pools. Static. That should do the trick. Not quite. On Gwari Pan Road. Now, I don't think we're going to spend a great deal of time here. I think it's probably worth spending about 20 minutes, 15 minutes or so. Let's just see if they don't get up and do what they're basically been doing for the last probably 3 or 4 days. Now, for those of you who've never seen big cats mate before, it's quite an astonishing sort of method, I guess you could call it. They will mate over 100 times in the course of 4 or 5 days. And that seems to be how it is that the big cats are able to conceive. I don't think it happens with smaller cats, and it seems to be only these large cats like this, and I don't even think that the cheetahs engage in the same thing. So leopards and lions have this rather bizarre situation where the male and female must spend this inordinate amount of time and energy mating. Now, you've got to ask yourself the question, why, from an evolutionary standpoint, does it make sense that it should take such a long time for them to mate, for them to conceive a youngster? Let's look at the impala, for example. When they mate, and they will be mating probably in the next 2 weeks or so, each sort of copulation, if you like, will take 2 or 3 seconds, that's all, and then the female will either conceive or she won't, and most likely she will conceive. Whereas this situation here, where they mate for over a week sometimes, and sometimes that doesn't even result in a pregnancy. Now, what could possibly be the evolutionary reason, or, I mean, what advantage could it confer on the cats for that to be the case? And I think that there are possibly 2 advantages. Let's look at it from the point of view of the female. Once she is pregnant, or once she comes into estrus, what she needs to do is to make sure that the energetic investment in creating an endometrial layer, in other words, in lining the uterus with expensive nutrients to have a youngster, to embed an embryo, in order for her to make that investment, she needs to make sure that she's going to fall pregnant. And so this lengthy mating period, I think what it does is it begins that process. And I think it's only during this process that actually happens. So if she was to create the endometrial layer beforehand, much like many other mammals do, if she didn't then fall pregnant, it would be extremely expensive for her. I think that might be one of the reasons for it. From his point of view, I think that from a male point of view, I suppose it could be that the extended mating period gives him more of a chance to perhaps put more of to find a point on it, to put more of his seed, more of his seed onto the market, as it were, because she could well go off and mate with another male during the same estrus cycle. So those are two sort of random thoughts tossed out there as to why it should be such a difficult process for big cats like this to get pregnant. And Leopold, a nice question from you as to whether lionesses and lionesses compete for the alpha male in a coalition. Leopold, I don't think so, no, because there isn't really an alpha male often. They often share equal rank. They often won't fight over mating opportunities. They will fight over food, the males. There isn't always actually an obvious alpha male within a coalition. A very good exception would have been the Matimba males that were up here. One of them was clearly more dominant than the other. He had a big dark black mane, indicative of the testosterone that he carried in his body. The other didn't. He had a mane a bit like this chap. And this chap is still quite young, of course. So, Leopold, no, they don't compete with each other for the attentions of the alpha male. It might be the other way around, though, where there might be competition amongst the males as to who gets to mate. But remember that the males in a coalition are most often related, which means from a genetic standpoint, even if your coalition partner manages to leave offspring, your genetic legacy is actually also passed on, even though not quite as strongly as if you had made an offspring yourself. Let me just move slightly so that Gendre has a slightly easier time of it. Otherwise, he's going to shout at me when we finish this sighting. Thank you, Angie. You say that this Birmingham male is Birmingham number 4. Sorry, there's a big stump here, which I don't want to result in a... This is Amber Eyes. She's cheating on me, everybody. She's my favorite. I think she's everyone's favorite, to be honest. Say when, Rondry. Let her go. So we're only about 5 meters from them, about 18 feet or so. They're completely unfazed by our presence here. And they are so peacefully asleep. And that is the atmosphere of the African afternoon, especially in autumn, when the temperature is just perfect. James Dungan, a very valid question from you. Do they mate at the same rate that leopards do? James, they do. Well, not quite, but just about. So, I mean, a leopard will normally mate probably, it kind of goes in cycles, but in an hour period, say a leopard couple would probably mate, I don't know, they'd probably mate twice every 5 minutes or so, so about 24 times or so. I think you'll find with lions that it's probably about half that, and that the sort of peaks of mating are temporarily more spaced apart than they would be for leopards. So leopards, the cycle seems to happen much faster. So you could probably say they mate about half the number of times that leopards do. But that's certainly much more than any other big cat I know of, that any other mammal that I know of, these two big cats. Other than porcupines, of course, which mate every day. It's always been, to me, one of the most amazing natural jokes or quirks and jokes of nature is that the most spiky and prickly animals in the world are the ones that have to mate the most. The awkwardness of a porcupine mating ritual every single night. Must be quite something to have to tolerate. But these chaps, of course, look to have exhausted themselves thoroughly during the course of the morning. Angie, please can you tell us why or how you know that this is Birmingham number 4? I think it's Birmingham number 3 who's got the mange all over his belly. Now, Aaron, all the way from New Zealand, you ask a question about whether or not if a male coalition, another male coalition came into this area, would they attack both of these, not just the male? Aaron, I think the question is probably answered by the way in which the Birminghams came into this area. When they arrived here and they chased the Matimbas away, they killed 3 of the Nkuhuma pride almost immediately. One of them before they'd even got in here as the dominant coalition. So I think you can almost guarantee that when their blood is up, when a coalition of males is trying to take over an area and chasing out the dominant males, they will almost certainly kill 1 or 2 of the females resident in the area, especially if they happen to be found with one of the males here. So there would be a real danger of that, Aaron. I think you'd find, though, if there started to be a great deal of roaring from an invading coalition, she would scarper. She'd disappear. She wouldn't be anywhere near this fellow if she thought that there was going to be a threat to herself. This is an arrangement of convenience right here. This is not an arrangement of affection. And on that slightly sort of a cynical note, let's head across to Sam, who's got one of the least cynical animals in all the wilderness.
So we are on the southern boundary of Cheetah Plains, and we've just come across a huge elephant bull. As you can see him in the distance there. Our camera is super good at getting close, and we are actually quite far away. We must be about 100 meters, hey Dev?
At least. Yeah.
At least 100 meters. So that's just incredible how these cameras can bring us so close to these animals. Have a look at him feeding over there. You can see the size of his tusks. Wow, we can even get closer. It's awesome. He's got a huge trunk. See it wrapping around the plants there. And a tusk. Looks like he's smelling something now. Maybe he can smell us. Because the wind is blowing exactly towards him, so it's coming through us all the way down towards the elephant. So he will quite easily be able to smell us. I think I've seen this elephant before. He's got quite a significant cut on the one side of his ear. You can see it there. I've noticed him before. He's an interesting character. He often feels quite wary about vehicles. And I've seen him put his trunk on his tusk, so he just carries his trunk on his tusk. He's a very, very beautiful big bull. Look at his feet there. Can you see his feet from there? Has he been down by the watering hole? I think he could have been down by the watering hole where those... I can't quite see them there. You can often tell if his feet are wet, so it doesn't look like he's been down there. He could have quite easily come from where we were with those buffalo. So going back to Ben wanted to talk about the big 5. So this is another one of the big 5, the elephant. So we've seen 3 of the big 5 in the first hour of drive. How cool is that? A lion, buffalo, and an elephant. Hopefully we'll have the opportunity to see the other 2. Well, it's not easy to see a leopard, but we're going to do our very best to locate that wonderful animal. In Kanyeni, I'll just pray that I can see that beautiful animal again. She's just such an incredible looking leopard, and we found her not very far from here. We drove this road last time. I was with VM, and went round on the Kruger boundary. So that's Mala Mala you're looking onto. That's why we can't get anywhere closer to that elephant. We're on to break Molo Molo. We're going to head down towards the Kruger break, so that is where Nkanyeni's territory lies. So we're going to have a look for tracks around there. I've just been told that she has tracks. Or, sorry, she has cubs, not tracks. Hopefully we'll find tracks, but she has cubs. And so it'll be great to see if we can find her cubs and her herself. So we're going to go and have a look in that area just now. Let's just have our last look at this elephant as he wraps his trunk around the branch down there. William from Potchefstroom is asking, can the increase of elephants on a piece of land impact the plant species quite significantly? Yes, they can. They can, but it's just dependent how you look at it, because elephants are ecological engineers. Many texts and papers will tell you about how elephants will open up landscapes through breaking down some of the foliage and sitting on some of the trees and create these open areas that we can see quite clearly now. Have a look at these open areas, and when you look at this open area allows for wilderness that we can't find in the thick brush, such as the ostrich, which we would love to see the ostrich, and the jackal and the cheetah. So, and even the impala. The impala likes both terrain. You can see impala in both, browsing and grazing in the big open areas. But giraffe also like the open areas, so elephants play a key role in actually opening land. And I understand your question where you're saying, if it is a small piece of property and you have too many elephants, would that have a big ecological impact? Of course it will. Let's not say that it won't, because of course a number of trees that get broken down, a number of nests in the trees, such as bird life. So biological activity can decrease when there's an overpopulation of any species. When you reach a carrying capacity of any species, it's going to have some sort of impact on the ecological environment itself. It's much like if all the leopards were or the predators to not be killing any of the herbivores, you would have an overpopulation of a herbivore that would then deteriorate the landscape. So it's a very, very good question, and it's up for debate around all of it, and I'm glad that you brought it up, because I love talking about these subjects. Just while we sit with this elephant and we look over the plains to see if we can find some of those animals that love the open areas, let's go and see how James is doing with one of Africa's most iconic animals.
James hasn't moved, the lions haven't moved, the flies have moved. The flies have very enthusiastically been chewing on that male lion there. And just have a look there, Jean, if you don't mind, behind his elbow there. There are two things that are interesting about that little thing there. Firstly, I think he looks like he's getting a bit of that mange that his brother has got. You just look underneath that sort of hairy armpit that he has. The second thing that's interesting, I think, is just from an anatomical point of view, the kind of makeup of an animal's limb. And I've been through this before, but you can see quite nicely there. That hairy bit is the equivalent of the elbow joint. So for those of you who are feeling dexterous enough, you can get down on your hands and knees, and where your elbow would be is where that tufty bit there is. It's not an armpit at all, it's actually the elbow. And if you look up from there towards the top of the animal, that's where the shoulder joint is. So the what am I looking for here? What's this bone called? The humerus. The humerus, which is the bone under which your bicep sits, or on which your bicep sits, is between that tufted bit and the shoulder. So it's much shorter on an animal like this lion. Then from the tufted bit down towards what looks like a knee, if you back on your hands and knees, everyone, for those who are feeling dexterous, like I say, that knee joint is actually the equivalent of your wrist joint. So it bends the same way forward, in the same way that when you're on your hands and knees, that would be like your wrist. And so the radius and ulna, which are the two thin bones in your forearm, are actually much more substantial in an animal like this lion. And then from that, what looks like a wrist joint down to the feet, the carpals or metacarpals, I forget which, are thicker and much kind of more substantial. Brilliant. So that's the state of the play with his feet. Then if we go back to his face, Angie, just come back to us, and you said the Birmingham number 4, who I think is only known as Birmingham number 4, is obvious because he has a golden mane, and this lion most certainly has a very golden mane. And he's also, while he's lying at this angle, obviously got a scar under his, that's his right nostril. Angie says under his left nostril, a very obvious scar. So we can't see his left nostril, but thank you for that, Angie. Upper right side of ear and head. Yes, we can see that too, just behind his ear. Thank you very much for that, Angie. Brilliant. Yeah, and John, if you go to the back end of him, you can see on his hindquarters there, he has got what looks like to be the beginnings of a bit of mange. Now, I don't know what the long-term effects of mange will be on an animal like this. It's now being fed upon by a polyrhynchus ant. That's quite something. I don't know if you saw the ant go in there, everyone. But there are also a whole lot of ticks there that are feasting upon him. Doesn't seem to be affecting him too much, but let's see if that spreads like it has on his brother, all the way down his belly. He's got that horrible mange, which I think he'll probably recover from, but it's just not very nice for him. And maybe just while we wait here, we're going to move on pretty soon, everyone. Let's, Chandra, if we can just do the same thing that we did for the back leg there, as we did for the front leg of the male. Let's go to the back leg of the female. And we'll go from the bottom. Her toes are the same as the back legs of your toes, of course. And that major joint behind there, which we call not the fetlock, which we call the hock. And you see the hock there, that's where her tail is just covering that joint. It's called a hock. That's the same as your ankle joint. So she's got a really long ankle joint. And then up into a much shorter sort of calf. And then if you look at the gap, that gap there, that sort of where her leg joins her body, that's the knee. That's the knee. So very short hip up into the back, which will join onto the spine. Well, eventually via the coccyx. So that's the lions. All right, everybody, we'll spend another 5 minutes here and then we'll go. Another wonderful Twitter handle, aggressive dung beetle. Aggressive dung beetle. One second. Aggressive dung beetle. You want to know if there will be a problem with all the Nkuhuma pride having cubs at the same time. Aggressive dung beetle. May I call you AGD? At least ADB. ADB, no, there wouldn't be a problem if there was enough for them to eat. So what happens is these females will give birth, they will cross-suckle each other. So it's actually quite a nice thing if 2 or 3 of them have cubs at the same time, because they can cross-suckle. I would say if more than 3 of them have cubs, yeah, then I think there will be a nutritional strain on the pride. But if 3 of them have got and 5 of them are healthy, I think it'll be fine. It'll be interesting to see. It sounds like at least 3 of them are going to have cubs, so that's very interesting. We're going to head on to here, back to Buffelshoek Dam, see what else is going on there. And while we do that, apparently Samwise has got one of the most iconic spectacles of all of Africa's wildlife, a great migration of the blue wildebeest.
Yeah, this elephant is chowing on this tree, but oh, we've got something behind it. The tree that we are looking at here looks like a knobthorn, but more importantly, what is behind that tree? It's a wildebeest, a group of wildebeest. So we've just seen a couple of them walk right past our vehicle. And this is probably the most wildebeest I've seen in quite some time in one area, which is so cool to see, because normally we drive around the corners and we just find the male. And there's a male here. He's actually been scratching himself on the logs, which is quite cool to see. But there a whole bunch of wildebeest just migrated into Mala Mala, and I'm just going to put my radio back on so that I may listen to what's going on. But let's have a look at this other wildebeest that is scratching itself as soon as I can. We still have yeah, the wildebeest. There's still quite a few here.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm actually going to go so...
It's too much.
Yeah, can you see the... Okay. There's a wildebeest. He looks like he's scratching his horn against this tree trunk. It's fascinating to watch that. So that's a big male there. And you can see his family behind him. And he would, this is prime property that this wildebeest is holding. He's holding open areas. He's got access to a watering hole, which is not far away. So this family group behind him, you can see a youngster in the screen there, just to the back there. And you'll see this wildebeest often here. This could very well be Norman the Gnu that Brent often talks about. And he'll be occupying this space, and he'll dust up the clouds and the ground and roll in the ground and show every single other male that this is his land. And by doing that, he shows dominance, and the females get attracted to that, and they come and live within his area. And it's all based on access to food and water. And the bigger wildebeests will be able to have and control and have territory there. So it's very cool to see this now. You often just, as I said earlier, see the male. Now we get to see a bit more of the family group just there behind us, and it's really cool because we might just get the opportunity later on, if we do find some predators. We do know that there are some young wildebeest in the area, so if we do find some hunting lions or hunting leopard, we know where they might want to come if we lose them. And there's also that large herd of buffalo not far away from here, so there's lots going on at Cheetah Plains this afternoon. There's elephant archer, a huge elephant bull, to a number of wildebeest, to those buffaloes. And let's go and have a look at those other wildebeest that are just behind them, and look at the way they walk. I mean, they've got a very significant walk, or even a run when they do run, and that posture has been defined over many, many, many years to be able to run far distances through the migrations that they used to undergo.
That's quite nice.
So quite nice. There we go, to see that. Now you can get a good visual of all of the wildebeest that we are seeing in the open areas this afternoon. Let's see, you can see all the way up to the top right there. There's a couple that are lying down and grazing, and we know that, let's actually get closer to their mouths. We can see that they like to eat the short grasses. This is one of the reasons why they like these open areas and the short grasses, because that's all they can feed on. So there we can see a wildebeest eating on the short grasses here. It's one of the main reasons why the wildebeest will migrate, to find these shorter grasses, and they work really well when there are zebra present, because zebra and wildebeest work in what we call ecosystem succession. So a zebra will be eating the bulk grasses, the thicker, bigger grass that the wildebeest won't eat, and then the wildebeest will follow after the zebra and start eating that smaller grass. So it's very interesting to understand how everything is kind of connected in some way. So Monty is asking, when is the rainy season? Well, the rainy season we have just coming out of now. So the last time it rained was about 2.5 weeks ago, and that's generally the summertime. So from around October, November down to March, April is our summertime, and that's when it should rain a lot. But the last summer we didn't get much rainfall, even though it looks quite green at the moment. It's gonna get dry pretty soon, and we are in for a very dry winter. But one never knows. We can't just say that. We could actually get some rain in the winter. We don't know until we experience it. But generally the dry season is coming up, which is our winter months, which is from around May down to October. So our rainy season is gone and our dry season is on the way. So Evan's interested to know, like, what sort of risks will the reserve be experiencing if it does get quite dry? Well, Evan, it's quite a complex question. It goes all the way down to water. Everything almost goes down to water, and a lot of these reserves actually pump water, so they bring water up from the ground, and that water is then fed to the different animals out here. So that's very different to the Kruger National Park, where they don't have that. And so, what happens? What will happen most likely when the dry season comes and the Sabi Sands has the water? We might just be experiencing very many different elephants that will come into this area. Elephants that haven't seen humans before, that have been inside the Kruger National Park just to get to the water. So the Sabi Sands is going to be one of the wetter areas in this area, in the greater Kruger and the greater Transfrontier. So in terms of water restrictions, we're going to have some problems, and reserves might find that they don't have as many animals as they used to, because the animals are looking to find water. So that's the most basic answer that I can give to you, Evan. Of course, there's all sorts of complex problems that occur because of the loss of water. But these wildebeest will do whatever they can to get to the water. There's an interaction between two of the wildebeest here. Ariel's just noticed the different shading on these wildebeest, and it is quite interesting. I once heard a theory about the shading in terms of the differentiation of coloration can actually cool them down. So it is said that it creates like a pressure difference, and it helps with cooling them down, that shading, which is just a theory. I'm not sure if it is correct, but it would make sense. Well, it can make sense, because almost like with a zebra, you can imagine it's black and white stripes, so the black attracts that heat and the white reflects that heat, so it can help with creating some sort of wind movement that cools them down from a scientific point of view. It is a beautiful look, though, in terms of that. It's almost quite silvery, the different colorations. Have a look at what these wildebeest are doing now, though. So they could be using scent there. They've got scent glands on their face, and they'll have anal scents. So it's nice to actually spend some time with wildebeest. We don't often do that. And we can tell the difference between the two different wildebeest by looking at the horn structure. They've just left now, but the females have quite a significant light brown on the front of their forehead. Can you see that there? Just back to that there we go. Have a look at that. The front of the wildebeest there, on the top, it's almost quite a much lighter brown. That's how I used to tell the difference when I was in my training. There's a much younger one. Have a look at this younger calf over there. So it's still getting, it's managed to get to a good age where it will be able to protect himself in this herd of wildebeest. But when situations do arise, like when, you know, wild dogs come out or there's a lion pride, these wildebeest will run, and it's often that the youngsters or the sickly, they can't keep up with the herds that get taken out by the predators. So they have to be very, very careful, and the mothers will take care of them for as long as they can. Let's drive up and just see if we can get another angle of them. That elephant's still over there. Still, it's quite cool to see that he's still out here on the plains. And I'm quite glad that we're just sitting out here having a look at the wildebeest and the elephants, purely because we're in the open area. So if there was something like a jackal or an ostrich around, we're in the best place to see it because it's nice and open. It's the opportunity of seeing those two. Okay, let's go and have a look at these wildebeest. For now though, let's just go and see what's going on at Buffelshoek. James is over there.
There are some terrapins, everybody. Some serrated hinged terrapins swimming in a sort of primordial ooze, if you like. I think they're probably eating the insects that are eating the ooze. They're not known to be vegetarians, though, I must say. While I've never read that they're vegetarians, I've seen them opening their mouths through bits of ooze like that very often. And I'm not convinced that they don't eat a bit of algae now and again just to supplement their diets, perhaps get a bit of fiber into the gut. But look how many there are. There are hundreds and hundreds of them. All finding little things to eat. This is really quite astonishing. Look at them, they're all in that ooze. Now, I can't see any insects in it. I'm looking at the ooze with my very powerful binoculars, but I don't see any insects there. I mean, these rather vicious little reptiles. I'm just holding one sec, sorry everybody. Yeah, I'm there now. There are two Duggar boys here, that's all. They will even ambush birds that come down to drink sometimes. It's probably more the marsh terrapin, but these serrated hinged chaps will do that. Some of them are probably, though you can't really see here, some of these guys are probably about a foot long. That's probably about the biggest one that we have here. And I suspect, like many animals that feed in the water, they've probably got to do quite a lot of feeding to get enough to eat. Isn't that wonderful? That group that you can see there, I don't know if you can just see their mouths opening and shutting as they swim through that ooze. So I'm sure there's something worth eating in there. Very peaceful sitting here at Buffelshoek Dam. Buffel, of course, is the Afrikaans term for Gendre. Exactly, and ironically enough, here at Buffelshoek Dam we have two buffalo. They're just over the top of the dashboard here, reclining gently over there. That's one there, Gendre. That large thing there. There we go, that's it there. Well done. Gendre has not forgotten what a buffalo looks like. That is a relief. And there is the other one. Quietly chewing the cud. And I bang on and on about how peaceful this kind of atmosphere is, and how the reason I live out here is because it does confer such a sense of, I don't know, connection with the earth and peace of the earth. And a little scene like this, to me, I could quite easily sit here all afternoon and be totally satisfied with my life. But don't worry, everybody, I won't sit here the whole afternoon. We'll go and see what other things we can find. I think that it's probably called upon that Jean-Ray goes to visit our friends at the hyena den. And so that's what we'll do once we've finished here at Biffle's Hook Dam, with the world's largest population of serrated hinged terrapins. Jean-Ray, I'm quite glad I'm not a serrated hinged terrapin, aren't you? Would you like to be one?
Does look quite inviting.
I think it looks quite smelly. They are smelly, everybody. You can't pick them up. If you pick them up, your hands will smell abominable for quite a long time. There we go. Alrighty, let's head on. We're going to do a little turn past where Sam and Taxon and Aubrey were tracking those two lionesses this morning, just around the northern side of the waterhole here. We'll see if we can't come up with anything there. I don't think they're too close by. These two buffalo are so fast asleep. And although two lionesses would prove almost no threat to two buffalo like this, I think you'll find that the buffalo still wouldn't be that comfortable with them around. So let's head back to Sam and his large migration of wildebeest, and we'll head down that way.
Have a look at these young wildebeest that are in front of our camera now. Very, very young. You'll see them eating the short grasses. We've just seen them eating here, and it's very special to be with this quite a large group of wildebeest. This is certainly the most that I've seen while I've been here. It's a little bit of a scruffle here. What's going on? Have a look at the behavior of them. Seems like they're all looking in one direction. That can also tell you something. As soon as you all see, you hear that bleat. It sounded like a bleat of a young calf. This is really, really interesting to see this formation. They've just created a formation. They're all standing behind each other there. What's very interesting is during the mating season, there's quite a, well, here's the male. You can quite see that this is a big male here walking out of the group, and you can tell the male is also, because of size, he is much bigger than the rest of them. One right in front of us. So now they're all following the leader over there. It's like this one's going back. So in the mating season, a territorial bull herds females into his territory by circling them with his head down and his tail lashing. So it's very interesting to see how they would herd a female. Maybe we can actually see that. While he's herding them, he bawls and grunts at them. He courts the females by stretching his head and neck forward and rearing onto his hind legs in a heraldic rampant pose. So interesting to see how a wildebeest will court a female. You can see that this male, so the male's just once again left the big group of females and youngsters here. He seems to be rubbing himself on the tree. Let's just look at him. He certainly is one big wildebeest. Like you see, he rubs himself. That's telling people, look, he's rubbed. This is great. Look at this. He rubs his head in the ground. I've only ever read about this, and it's so cool to see it now. in live, how they rub their head on the ground like that. Let's have a look at him. Perspective of his family, he really is a big wildebeest. You truly see his colors now. I think it was Ariel that was saying that. You can see his hoof structure now as well. Let's go straight down to that hoof. It's an ungulate, it's an even-toed ungulate, which means these two toes. Those are the tracks that you would find. You would find those tracks walking around often in these big open areas. And he's got a tail there. You can see that tail will whip any of the flies that are flying onto his body. You can see it's quite coarse, that tail. They're very well looked at. They look very, very clean. This wildebeest. You know, ever since someone's mentioned that coloration, I can clearly see it now. It's beautiful to see that. There's his ear. And those are his horns. So those are large horns for a wildebeest. They've got such interesting kind of structures. Skeleton and their makeup is defined for the migration to help them travel such far distances. You can see he's chewing. So we've had some beautiful sequences here in the afternoon light of cheetah plains. And we now know where this large group of them are. Just open here, just to the north of us is where the big large buffaloes are. So we're going to leave these wildebeest and the buffaloes and head towards our lot where the last time I saw Nkuhuma. So we know where they are. So if need be, we can track them down. We're going to now go for a search of a leopard this afternoon. See if we can find some tracks. That elephant bull is still there. Awesome. Gracie, aged 8, is talking about how buffaloes might be quite mean to wildebeest and how there are buffaloes close by. Gracie, there are buffaloes very, very close by, and so that we could very well see an interaction between the wildebeest and the buffalo later when possibly the wildebeest want to go and get something to drink and that large herd is there. And you said that you saw an interaction between the two and Brent had to give a time out. That must have been quite funny to watch with Brent. Would have liked to have seen that. So, Gracie, it's great to have you on this show. Grace is 8 years old. So, I think the buffalo, what I've just been told is that it headbutted the wildebeest, the young wildebeest. It's not very nice. Oh, James is with an antelope that moves quickly, so let's go see it.
This particular antelope is not moving quickly. Thank you very much, Mr. Antelope, for not moving quickly. This is a steenbok, everyone. A female steenbok. Chewing. Scratching. Still scratching. Now looking. Now eating. There's something about this sighting that I find profoundly silly. I'm not sure why. But the steenbok is not alone, everybody. Let me just ease backwards. No, one doesn't ease backwards in this car. There are two of them here. Now, they will tell you, of course, that you do not find two steenbok together unless they are a mating pair. Or, oh, the other one is not nearly as brave. There's another ewe, another little female, and I think most likely the offspring of this one. I think that's her offspring now, just probably about to leave home. Very, very selective feeders. She will eat, although she looks like she's probably just nibbling on some leaves there, she'll be selecting for the buds and the richest, most nutrient-dense parts of the plant, because your energy balance as a little thing like this is very difficult to maintain, very high metabolic rate, and so you've got to find a lot of rich food to eat. Seeds, I think quite often, I wouldn't be surprised if they ate a few insects now and again, just to keep the fat reserves up. Ooh, no, sorry. I thought it was an injury on her shoulder, but it's a blemish on the screen that I'm looking at. Now, we're not far from Buffelshoek Dam, probably only about 100 meters or so, 300 feet. And, I mean, this is around where Sam and Dave were tracking the lions this morning. So we're going to carry on through here. Oh, look, she's laying down. Let me just go forward a little bit. Oh, there we go. Well done, Wendy. Isn't that nice? This is probably I know it's not mind-blowing, but it's probably the best steenbok sighting I've ever had. Evan, you want to know why it is that these steenbok seem to be so much more skittish than any other animal. Well, this one certainly isn't, Evan, but I take your point. I don't think they are necessarily. I think they're no more skittish than, say, a duiker is. They're certainly no more skittish than a serval or an African wildcat or a banded mongoose is. I think it's because they're so small, though, Evan, that they have no physical way of defending themselves against any of the predators that come to get them, that their default reaction is to run away from anything that they feel is slightly unfamiliar. Whereas something like an impala, well, it has the protection of the herd, certainly, and they do have a certain amount of size or physical prowess. And so there is an option for them to turn and face the threat that comes towards them. Whereas for that steenbok, unless it's being set upon by a bushveld gerbil, it's almost certainly going to die if it is caught by a predator. And I haven't seen too many bushveld gerbils setting upon steenbok. But that one is very relaxed indeed. Very unusual. And you can see how well camouflaged she is. She's hidden herself very nicely up against the green bush. And for a predator that sees not in color, not in black and white, but in limited colors, probably largely in shades of green and blue, and therefore the red color of that steenbok is hidden. It's so artistic, Chandra. Chandra, that you must have picked that up at Africa Bird, did you? All the hipsters were there, had their cameras out. Very nice. I've forgotten what I was saying about the steenbok. Anyway, so that steenbok actually will be almost invisible to one of the predators here, which sees in different shades of greens and blues rather than that red, that rich red color that to our eyes sticks out so much. Very nice steenbok. Let us continue, Jean-André. Let's Africa burn our way forward. Africa burn, by the way, everybody, for those of you who don't know, is the equivalent of, what's it called? Burning Man. It's the African equivalent of Burning Man out here. Jean-André was just recently there. As I say, that's why he's a little bit grubby. No water there to shower in, correct, Jean-André? There we go. But a lot of fun, you say? He's nodding his head vigorously. And James Richard, while we were driving along, we were talking about the fences earlier on, and we were talking about potentially local people collecting elephant dung and buffalo dung, and whether that happened or not. James, you want to know what species are potentially causing the most conflict with local people. In this area, almost none. Further north, where the fences are probably much less well maintained, in fact they definitely are much less well maintained, you will find that elephants break out every so often and they will get into maize fields, which of course for poverty-stricken rural people is a disaster. One elephant can take away a year's supply of maize or corn in the space of a couple of hours. Baboons, the same story. And then, as far as livestock goes, leopard, of course, find it very easy to get over or under fences, and so they will sometimes kill goats and maybe even the odd donkey. Lions sometimes get out and kill cattle, but they do struggle much more than the leopards to get in and out of fences. So I suppose it would be leopards, and then it would be elephants, and baboons would be the ones that create the most hassle. It's not a major issue, but it does happen, and certainly the Kruger Park has got some fairly sophisticated methods of going to assess and then compensate local people for any losses incurred. And that's highly, highly important. As I've said before, conservation land in South Africa, given our troubled and tumultuous past, is highly contested areas, highly contested. And rightly so. I saw a comment the other day, and I'm not sure where it came from. I'm not sure what forum it was on. But the comment went something along the lines of, why do the Africans keep destroying the country? And, I mean, apart from the comment is obviously one of an unfamiliarity with a place like Africa, its vast size, and the fact that it isn't a country at all. It's a giant continent, into which the continental United States would fit 3 times. But it's also a sense that these game reserves in Africa have been formed in order because the local people of the area have threatened the natural wildlife of the area. And that's not the case. The main reason we've had to create game reserves in these areas is because of the white hunters that came into the areas in the sort of mid-19th century or early 19th century and came up through this area, through Tanzania and Kenya, and they basically shot out the elephant and buffalo and rhino and hippo populations in order to sell their ivory and their horn and their hides into world markets. And it was only through the advent and introduction of firearms into these areas and all the iconic wildlife areas of Africa that the necessity for national parks exists. And of course the concept of a national park is an American one, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, was it Teddy Roosevelt? It was one of the Roosevelts. I think it was Teddy Roosevelt, who was the great naturalist American. Although he was a hunter, he was certainly also a conservationist, and much of his work and the original pioneering American national parks gave rise to the national parks that we have in this country and of course in the other African countries like Tanzania and Kenya and other areas like that. No sign of the lions around here. So I'm in 2 minds as to whether we should go and look at the hyena den, but it is quite a long way from here, or whether we should just lurk in this area and wait and go back to those other 2 lions who will no doubt become active, probably just as the sun goes down. I tell you what we're going to do. I think we're going to go towards the hyena den. If Sam Wise is on his way back from Cheetah Plains, he can go back to those lions. Otherwise, we'll have a quick look at the hyena den, and then we'll go back to the lions. So let's get out of here. Oh, Sam has got an interesting and embarrassed-faced bird to show you.
You don't have it.
So we have just found ourselves another bird this afternoon. It's a bird we don't find often, and hopefully we can see it again. Come on, where did it go, Dave?
Good bird.
It's It's a small ground nesting bird that has a red face. What do you think it is before we see it? There's a few of them that we can find. It's in this area somewhere. Can you spot him? Where are you? Where are you? There he is. Hello. It's a beautiful Franklin. It's gonna get, so if I, with the red face like that, is the Swainson's Franklin. It's something that we haven't seen. So I'm gonna get my bird book. Look at the way he walks. So we've got a number of Franklin on our property. On Vuyatella, like the crested Franklin. I just want to show you. So very excited to get a new bird onto our list today. Write it down. Is it a new one for you? It's a new one for me. I haven't seen that yet. And I'm feeling, look at the streaks on it. Significant black eye. So, hold on, just go get a close up on that. So we can see it's the Swainson's. You can see it's got streaking on the neck, and it'll have barring on the bottom of its stomach. So that's great. We found a new spurfowl, Swainson's spurfowl. A new bird to our list. So we saw a tawny eagle this morning, which was new, barbed, and now a Swainson's Franklin. Alright, we've been looking around to see if we can find the infamous Nkanye. Any tracks. We went to the last position that I last saw her, where she might have left her cub, so I went to go look for any kind of cub tracks or anything like that, and there were nothing to be seen. Look how beautiful it is to be in this drainage line, or this area. You've got that soft light coming in as the evening finishes. Isn't that beautiful? Really magnificent scenes here at Cheetah Plains. I really enjoy coming here just because it's so beautiful. And so what we're going to do is we're going to drive back onto those open areas. We both got a feeling, myself and Dave, have a feeling that if we stay on the plains till sunset, we may very well have the best opportunity of seeing a jackal. So we're going to keep our eyes open to find a jackal, because I know that you guys really would like to see a jackal, and so would I, because I haven't seen a jackal. And we've got lots of plains game that's out there. We've got the wildebeest, and we've got some buffalo, which is really nice, because that might attract some of the predators into the area as the sun goes down. So if we can't find them, they can find us. And it also gives us that opportunity, just while the sun's up, to open our eyes to see if those cheetah are on the other side of Mala Mala. So Ashley wants to know, when the buffalo are lying around, on their own, sitting there, why doesn't a lion come and take it, eat it, kill it? Good question, Ashley. Main reason being, like firstly, it is a risk for a lion. If a lion's on its own, comes across a buffalo, it's at risk purely because a buffalo is very big, so it could get very badly injured by trying to kill that buffalo. But if it's a pride of lions, or if it's a group, like if a couple females and a couple males that come into a drainage line and they see a buffalo on its own, it won't be scared to go for a kill. So it's all dependent really on how many lions are in the area. And if there are enough lions in the area, they'll be confident enough to take down a buffalo that's on its own. And that's something that I'm still to see, actually. It's not something that happens often out here, but what I've been told since I've started working here, which is a month yesterday, I've been here for a month yesterday, is that the Birmingham boys, which are the male coalition, oh, have a look at that. The size of that nest, that spiderweb nest, it is awfully big. Just in that bush over there. It's incredible. That's the acacia. It's an acacia tree in there. It looks like a flaky thorn acacia with a massive spiderweb nest in there. And then that spiderweb nest is most likely a community nest spider, where they make those thick webs like that. And if we had to go closer, I mean, David's camera has an amazing zoom, so we can potentially see what is on that web that gets caught there. You can just make out some things. It's mostly debris and leaves. You can't see any of the spiders that are on there right now. But can you see how it completely takes over a part of the tree? And those thorns are not small. Those are not small thorns. And I was hoping to see if we could find an acacia thorn later, because if you'll notice with the elephant in front here, it doesn't have a tusk, doesn't have a tusk. And I feel like Ellie needs a tusk over there. So I might just get one of those thorns and put it glue it into his face and get a tusk going on our friend Elvis the Ellie. Amazing sunsets out here on Cheetah Plains. So fantastic to be able to traverse this new property. Just give you a few seconds to digest that magnificent sun. Deborah Armchair Traveller is asking the question whether the differentiation of temperature is going to create condensation and dew on the ground that might be able to feed, or supply water to some of the organisms out here. I've never really thought about it, but it makes a lot of sense. I mean, the differentiation between this morning and a couple of hours later was huge, and there is quite a significant amount of dew that comes on the ground. So that must make a difference in the hot environments out here when it gets hot on those winter days. It'll be able to bring some nourishment to the animals that are out here. And just on that topic, have a look here, the buffalo, they're right here. This is awesome. They're in the evening sun. Just going to go very, very slowly towards them. Deborah, I'm going to come back to that comment that you made now. Let's just, for the time being, have a look at these buffaloes that potentially might cross the road, and we can get some excellent visual of them. Just going to make them feel comfortable and get a good picture of this size. This is quite a large herd. It's not the biggest one that I've seen so far, but it is fairly big. You can see they're all having a look at us. This evening sunlight on them is great. Have a look at those horns. Wow, those are huge. Wow. Don't you have very, very pretty horns? So it is a female. can quite clearly see that that is a female. You can see at the bottom there the udder, and the boss is not thick on top, so to see a female like this is quite rare. She's large. She must be quite a dominant member. You can see she's actually leading the group. Yeah. That's very cool to see that. So that horn might make quite a big difference in this group here. The one to the right of that female is a male, so you can quite clearly see the difference now between the male and the female boss. That male boss is much thicker, bigger than the other one. This is so awesome to see them in the sunlight, walking through the plains. Look at that youngster there. Desiree from Indiana is asking, why do some of the buffaloes have white spots on their faces? From what I understand, it could be. I mean, I'm actually not too sure of the reason why they have those white spots, but it could be from them rubbing against trees. You can quite clearly see those white spots. You see they're often rubbing themselves against trees. They rub their bosses on trees to help, especially tambuati trees that have that kind of, that white substance that helps kill the parasites in their boss. Potentially from rubbing against trees, they in turn also inflict some damage to their face that then can create some scarring to the tissue on the skin that could create those white spots. That's a good question. It could also very well be from the oxpeckers. The oxpeckers, maybe there's a big buildup of ticks that go to that area that the oxpeckers will constantly come and pick in that area. And that could be a damage from the amount of oxpeckers coming to that area. It's a very good question. So there they go, off into the area. Let's try and get another position. So Leopold's asking, I wonder if between the buffalo and the oxpecker, if there's some sort of affection, because there's so much interaction between both the buffalo and the oxpecker. They have spend a lot of time. But and you're asking if it might be just business. No, Leopold, I think it might be just business, provide a little symbiotic relationship, but who knows? I mean, we can only presume different things, We don't know what's really going on. But from the surface, it just looks like a little bit of business. They need something to eat, and the buffalo would probably like those sticks to be off their faces rather than on them. So we're going to say goodbye to those buffalo for now. That was awesome to watch that in the afternoon sunlight. Let's go back to those big open areas. How beautiful is this, eh? This is incredible. With the different colors in the background and the soft light. This was my mom's favorite light. She loved this light. It's so nice and soft. And this light on a mountain is my favorite colors. Incredible colors that you get. The wildebeest are still very much in that open area there. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, good afternoon. Or good evening rather. Still grazing the short grass, are we? Let's have a look all the way across these plains now. So Donna's asking, are some of the ones there actually guarding the herd? So the big male that we saw a bit earlier, who was sitting with earlier, will protect this herd. You know, if there was any other if there were any other wildebeest that came into this area, they will, you know, defend this. There's the big male. So you can see him just sitting down on the other end of this road, and he'll be protecting his harem of females. But they will, if they want to move off, they will move off. You know, he doesn't follow them when they move off his territory. So he tries to keep them here. If another male tries to come onto his land, he's going to have a little bit of a scuffle with them. But he's not going to follow this group here off into another territory of the males. He's just got to hope that the females agree to this land and to the food and the water, and that's what makes the dominance. So in terms of the buffaloes, a bit different. So the buffaloes will move together in the big herds, and you have what you call pathfinders within the big large herd of buffaloes that will determine the direction in which they go, and they also have a number of males that will follow on the perimeters, on the outskirts of the big herd as it moves. It's fascinating to learn how the large herd of buffalo move. I was reading up on it a couple nights ago. Of course, every single herd has its own complex interaction, so no herd will be the same. Have a look at this hornbill as it flies past. There we go, just go onto your screen. There goes a hornbill. Probably going to go land up in that tree. So just going back to a question we had earlier about dew. Just forgotten about who it was that asked that question, but you know what's fascinating is that there are some, I think it was Deborah Armchair Traveller was asking that question, and what's fascinating about some animals is they're actually able to collect dew on their back. So there's a beetle in the Sahara Desert, which gets much hotter than this. In the Sahara Desert, I'm not sure of the name of the beetle, but it's able to lift the back of the back of the beetle to a position where it collects dew, and that's how it drinks, and that's how it gets its water. Isn't that fascinating that a beetle is able to collect water purely because of the design of the back of the back of the beetle? And so, from a biomimicry point of view, there's actually systems that have learnt and emulated from that design to try and find water in areas that are very scarce, like deserts. How can they learn from the design of the back of the beetle to collect water in the early mornings and the afternoons? Just before we go and see how James is doing, let's just have a quick look at the big group of buffaloes that are now coming towards these wildebeest now. We don't know what will happen here, but just for the time being, let's go and see how James is doing. And if there's any interaction between the two, we'll be back.
Everybody, there are some days when one wants to punch oneself in the face. There was the most incredible shot of an African hawk eagle sitting exactly where Gendre is now, facing his camera. Unfortunately, I was not concentrating sufficiently, stopped too late, and it flew off as you came live. I then punched the steering wheel in a fit of temper and hurt my little handy, which is now very sore. I must apologize for my idiocy, everyone. I'm sorry. We went to the hyena den. There are no hyenas there, plenty of tracks. So I think let's quickly go back to the lions. We're going to be with a school again from 5:20. I'm not sure what the time is now. It's about 10 minutes' time. So we'll head back towards those lions, see if they do anything. I'm going to sneeze, I warn you. No, I'm not. It's gone. It seems to be passing. I think it's coming up through my eyes, actually, as I can no longer see anything out of my left eye. Right, there we go. I think I'm okay now. There's a lot of dust in the air at the moment. Goodness knows what it's going to be like come November time. The sinuses will be in a state they'll be in. All right, let's see if we can find something interesting along here. Okay, Sarah, you're in North Carolina and you want to know when the best time of year to come is to see the Milky Way, when the moon isn't as bright. Well, Sarah, I mean, the moon's not here for basically 2 weeks of every month. You can see the Milky Way very nicely, but the best time of year to see the Milky Way is probably in winter. The thing about the stars, though, is that summertime's actually got the most entertaining night sky with Orion and what else is there in the night sky? We've got Taurus, the Pleiades. The Southern Cross is a kind of winter, I suppose, wintry constellation, so that's in the sky in winter. So wintertime, best time to come and see the Southern Cross and the Milky Way. But while this is a good place to see the stars, it is not the best place in South Africa to see the stars. It's dusty here in winter, and in summer there's often a lot of cloud around because obviously that's the rainy season. But there are better places in South Africa to see the stars, and those would be down in the Karoo, the kind of dry, semi-desert to desert areas that we have here, and a very famous observatory in South Africa called Sutherland, coldest part of the country. Very good place to see the stars. So it is really good here. But there are definitely better places in South Africa to see the stars. And the moon, I mean, like I say, for two weeks of just about every month, it really doesn't affect the stargazing because it's either below the horizon or very thin and slivery, and then it doesn't make much of a difference. Yeah. So lots of great places to come and see the stars here, and you can certainly see them here, but this is not the best place. Would you agree with that, Jean-Marie? Looking around, there looks to be some smoke in the air, and I'm not sure what on earth could be burning at this time of the year. Anyway, I don't think it's anything disastrously treacherous for us at the moment, so that's good. Relief. Now, we've just about seen the last of the migrating birds go overseas. We saw the massing violet-backed starlings, much more attractively called the plum-coloured starlings. We saw them massing yesterday evening. I saw them 3 days before that, and I think that they are the final migrating birds from here. Certainly some of them. And Heidi, you're in Switzerland and wondering whether global warming is affecting the migrating birds. So let's just examine why it is that birds do migrate. Birds migrate, obviously, to get to places where they're normally insect eaters, or, in fact, they're almost exclusively insect or meat eaters. They migrate to areas of summer where there are insects, and they move because of the amount of food that is available. Now, there's a monkey, Rondry. See, a number of monkeys. Let's just ease into position here. Just over to the right-hand side there. You might see quite a nice view of them there. Say when, Jean-André.
Yeah.
Does that work for you? So while we look at the monkeys, Heidi, I think that what global warming will do to the food supply of various animals is quite possibly where it affects water. So the insect populations will probably last longer than they do normally, and so migrating will be delayed, whereas in some areas it's going to get drier and insect populations will not last as long, and so the migration might be earlier. So I think that's how basically it will affect migrating populations of birds. Ooh, very nice. Samuel seems to be on fire there on cheetah plains. He doesn't have a cheetah for you, but he has got a male lion. Go ahead.
Have a look at this male lion that is walking onto cheetah, onto Mala Mala at the moment. He is beautiful. I just took out my binoculars and I said, we're going to watch the sunset and I'm just going to search the plains to see if I can see anything moving. And next thing I know, I just see the most magnificent male lion walk into my binoculars. Isn't he magnificent? Look at that black mane at the bottom there. He is incredible and he's walking towards us. And what else is quite close to us is wildebeest and some buffalo. So who knows what we could be in for this evening. But I just can't get over how beautiful he is. You can see a Senegal lapwing, which is a new bird, just behind him there. Well, actually, no, those are crowned. Those are crowned lapwings. But look as he walks through the plains. What a magnificent sight. We have the luxury now to just sit and enjoy his stride over the plains. As he looks over into the sunset, he's looking straight into that sunset. What's interesting is that he's on his own. I can't tell if he's one of the Birmingham boys. It's both myself and Dave here, so we're both fairly new. So from this distance, I can't actually tell if he's a Birmingham boy. I don't remember a Birmingham boy having such a dark mane as this, but it could very well be one of them. Something beautiful. Walking straight towards Cheetah Plains. Last time, myself and Dave were sitting in probably not a different position to when we saw those cheetahs. Welcome to the Independent Middle School and Mrs. Friedman. You've just tuned in to the sighting of this male lion that is heading across towards us at the moment. It is very exciting. We decided to see what we could find on Cheetah Plains this afternoon, and we've seen a lot. We've seen wildebeest, we've seen buffalo, and the wildebeest and the buffalo are not far behind us currently. They're very close to us, and it's going to be interesting to see what the behavior might be when the lion does get closer. But what's incredible is that this camera zoom, I don't know, I can't see it with I can't see the lion at the moment. Oh yes, I can. He's actually walking straight for our vehicle. But the camera zoom is incredible because we can literally pick up all the features of that lion. He's walking a particular game path, it looks like. So if we're lucky, if we just come and have a look here, Dave, you'll see this game path a little bit later on how, yeah, there we go. Just have a look at that game path. How a little bit later that lion might just walk right across. Lineman would like to know, how fast is the male lion? The male lion can get up to about 50 kilometers per an hour. So I'm not sure what that is in miles, but it's 50 kilometers per an hour. That's what we use in South Africa. Oh, 50, sorry. So it's 81 kilometers per an hour, and it's 50 miles per an hour. So miles is correct, 50 miles and 81 kilometers per an hour. Lion I mean, there is obviously, of course, autonomous. They are better than humans. They are male lion. And so now he's still in Mala Mala. I'm going to call it in on the radio quickly because I think I should let everyone know here. Stations on Cheetah Plains. There is a male lion just about to cross the Mala Mala border, the southern border. The size and that mane of the was very muscle. The wildebeest to do is follow him and find out what his motives are. See how he might interact with the animals that we've been sitting with. For the last 2 hours. Any stations, do you copy? So I'm just going to get hold of someone on the radio to see if I can get hold of anyone on Cheetah Plains. I've tried both channels. I'm going to try one more. Have a look at the wildebeest there. They can quite clearly notice the lion that is over here now. When it you can see quite clearly now as the male lion moves across this area. With the wildebeest in the background there. I'm going to keep quiet so you can hear the sound of their alarm calls. So can you see how they're not running away? That's the sound. That is the alarm call. And they don't run away because they would rather see where the predator goes. This is what the advantages of being a species that likes the open areas. Brush in a thick bush there would be